where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see.
A big, powerful America, and shoot them for what?
On that continent, we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other.
I want you to imagine you're riding and coming back from a wedding, and you see a car get hit. In terms of hit, I mean a physical bomb on a car in front of you in this, coming back, and in the chaos, you try to go and see if there's any survivors, of course, but somebody stops you, and your attention comes to a noise, a whirring noise, a buzzing noise, if you will, and this noise is from a drone, and you're being stopped because no one wants a second attack, or for these particular drone operators or pilots to mistaken you for a target that they missed the first time. This is our second installation on drones. Now, this is really from the book Drones by Hugh Gusterson. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that in any way. This is, this is a relatively short read, but in terms of, we're talking about 160 pages. When it comes down to the progression here, there's a lot of things to discuss, and really what I've noticed in terms of coming across this form of PTSD really strikes drone operators or pilots, and the idea of calling these guys pilots is, it's up for dispute, as well as like a lot of things regarding drones and their operators. But when it comes down to this element, something that's really striking is a lot of times these guys aren't necessarily in the war zone. They can be in the middle of the country in America and, literally piloting drones in shifts. So the same way you come home from work, they can be coming home from work as well, in terms of work being, bombing and being in the middle of a war zone somewhere else, I suppose. And the striking, the striking image of one of these drone pilots being pulled over by, local police, it really hits when you realize that just 2 minutes, a few minutes ago, or 40 minutes ago, they were strapped in and they're targeting some guy abroad, likely a terrorist, but it could be literally we'll come back to this later, but a lot of times these guys aren't really we don't know these guys, and there's a lot of mistakes that are associated with drones and what they do, being that they're limited to this this view of being high up in the sky, rather and the limitations that would, to identify any target. But really, when it comes down to these guys being pulled over by police officers the same way that we're pulled over, if they're caught speeding, or if they get in a fight, if they get in a fight with their significant other, like these common themes of, our life being common and prevalent in their life, and really the split personality that really creates for a person, being really a problem in terms of dealing with the idea of piloting a drone all the way in a place that's not necessarily a war zone. A lot of these guys suffer from things like PTSD. In fact, they're even trying to move the bar because the theme or the idea of PTSD is, for a lot of people, they argue that this is a syndrome that belongs specifically to people in war in terms of in combat. Likely these same people are the ones who argue against these guys getting medals in any shape or form. They're not necessarily in bodily harm, but they receive medals with, next to people who actually are, boots on the ground, have boots on the ground, and are fighting, these particular elements. There's a lot of dispute in terms of with, how to categorize a drone operator, but also the drones themselves. Obama, there was a peak in terms of drone warfare with Obama in office, and this could be to a number of things in terms of the technology being more readily available, but in terms of the argument, there's an argument of, if we're in a war, if there are no American civilians in harm's way. And this is interesting, in terms of watching people try to grapple with, and watching, watching, a lot of representatives or officials try to grapple with, what we're doing and what we're capable of doing now. Especially, I think there's a case where some American civilian was targeted, and it was more of a case of, I think the argument was whether that person posed danger to American civilians through journalistic, tendencies or whatever, but whatever that person went from journalism to planning and things like that, and the specific argument or the specific argument came down to a wording of imminent danger, and how this concept of imminent danger applied to a journalist when they appeared on some kind of targeted list for a drone strike months before. And the idea is, put that in parallel when it comes down to imminent danger. If someone's shooting at a group of soldiers, they're the idea is these soldiers don't have to look up and try to, they don't have to, look up the grounds for, oh, can I shoot back right now if they're being shot at the moment. And the concept is that imminent danger, or imminent, seemingly applied to every, it meant anything, which meant that it meant nothing. And this idea of the complications regarding drones and the use of drones, there's a lot of arguments that say things like, if there a lot of arguments for drones are saying that this is a precise attack and no civilians are killed, and that's simply not true, according to a lot of generals, and the element and this idea of civilian casualty, as they started saying things like, or they used terminology, I believe they had to classify it at some point, but they called it bug splatter, in terms of the idea of civilian, will it cause a lot of splatter or a little bit, and trying to really feel like, or trying to really get a sense of, is this gonna cause a big fuss or a little fuss. And at some point, drone operator, there's a lot of talk around this idea of military aged males, and that was it didn't matter, it was anyone that was 16 to 50 in this group. They became the idea of playing with the numbers or revolving around civilian casualties was in this idea of anybody and everybody was considered, anybody who was a military age male was considered not a casualty. And very interesting. But another thing that was really, really, really striking, I think, was this element of people, casualties, and being stopped from attacking due to literally if they're seeing children in an area, there would be there would be kind of of course they receive orders not to strike, and at some point there's there's an argument there's somebody was or some pilot was complaining that they were quick to say, or to call out the possibility of children being in the area, but not quick to to call out the use of weapon or potential weapons. And I don't know, it seemed like this is something that, honestly, it seems a very dark path that we really are on with this idea of drone technology in general, and what drones can do. The idea of secondary strikes was something that was prevalent because a lot of for a lot of different reasons. A drone wants to wants to stick around in that area, but the idea of a drone sticking around that area, it's really directly associated with traumatizing anyone in that area. a lot of villages, they don't even go back to help or they make it practice not to go back to, or not to help anybody with, if it's hours on end or, whatever. And the idea is, they don't want to be mistaken for a target. And that is, it's crazy that, these guys, like, there can be somebody stuck in rubble for hours on end, but and there's people in the area that hear them, hear their cries for help, but they can't go back, because the idea is, if they do, then, there's a possibility of a second attack. Very in terms of this idea of drones, how we classify, and how a lot of people are playing with this wording in terms of whether, American, making the distinguishing between, or distinguishment between, like, Americans at war, Americans not at war. At some point, like, the our argument came in for, there's always going to be a reason and an impulse to use these drones if people are allowed to do so. And particularly, like, when it comes down to, like, this never-ending warfare, just, despite how you define warfare, being more like, it's appealing to, like, a psychopath to be in a to this idea of a never-ending war, and this idea of, really, the verbiage and the classification, it becomes more prevalent, or more likely for them to see this never-ending war, in terms of this idea of being able to play with, like, play with this wording in any case. But another thing is, like, a lot of, like, drones, they can, they can be extremely, like, high up in the sky, and to the point to where nobody may notice, like, coming outside, you can't see the drone up in the sky watching you. And there's a few, like, they talk about a few instances where, like, like, this guy who's thought to be, like, they're doing, they're the idea of, like, military age males coming into a group of any form or fashion, like, they criminalize that in a certain way, to where, like, we're gonna watch these guys for X amount of time, and it's I don't know. At some point, they got into some ended up being, like, at one point, like, a village elders coming together for some kind of dispute between villages. And another thing was, like, there was, like, really at some point, there's a lot of situations that revolve around this concept of, when you have, or when you're able to, like, be high in the sky, like, you feel like a god watching down on people, and a lot of these guys are, like, or there's this element of, like, what is, what are, what power that, the drone has over these lives. Um, being high up in the sky, being able to watch these guys. There's instances where, like, you can see someone who's clearly, like, having sex with his wife, and there's, like, another thing where, like, they follow some guy and he ends up, like, messing around with a goat or, like, a donkey or something. It's pretty crazy. But, like, there's another situation where, like, there's literally, like, a guy fixing potholes, and it was common practice, okay, we currently, like, this element of unfortunately, like, fixing potholes was associated with terrorism. And he watched this guy for a while, and he found out, he's like, all right, this looks like a guy that's just fixing potholes. And there's, like, a moment where he's done working, he's done fixing the potholes, or as soon as he gets done filling the potholes, like, he's about to go home, and, like, these tanks come out, and they literally run over the same area and recreate what he just did. Like, I think it was, like, a whole, like, basically what he was doing for that entire day. And he just recognizes, like, the drop, or the, basically, like, just a feeling of dejection and, like, just hopelessness come over that guy. It's pretty like, it was just like, like, at some point, the drone operator was giving an interview, and he was just like, I just recognized that feeling, and it was just, like, so ridiculous. But but yeah, this feeling of supremacy over another nation or nations outside of your own, that's very real. When you can hear it when a lot of these guys are talking, and generals, and presidents, generals, and a lot of them are saying some some pretty, when you're in the room, you can see why, it makes sense of why they would say some of the things that they're saying. But when it comes down to the actuality, the practice, it's not, it's simple, like, we have the authority because we have the capability, and it's definitely something to watch out for in terms of, like, this concept of, what drones can do, what they do, and what they're able to do inside the U.S. Like, currently, like, people can't, like, drone strikes can't go on in the U.S. And the idea is, like, a lot of they can't weaponize this element of drones in the U.S. They can't weaponize drone usage in the U.S. They used it at parks. They used it in a few other instances, but really, there's a they make the distinguishment between outside and inside the U.S. And like, in terms of other places outside of the U.S., we still have this concept of enemies of freedom, and we'll use that to justify a lot. But when you look around and you're really on the ground, in the Middle East, I think a lot of us need to understand that we are the terrorists to a lot of these people. like I said, this was drones, or drone remote control warfare by Hugh Gusterson that I was reading. Gave some very good examples, very good insight, and definitely recommend it for like anybody who really wants to know more about like this concept of drones and how they're used in warfare. I'm your bookman for this report, Sleepy, and hopefully I'll see you soon. And until then, please, like and subscribe, or I'm not sure how to do the podcast version of that. But if anything, I'll see you next time. Thank you.